Hello? Hello, class. Hello, class. You're hearing me? Hello?
We can hear you, sir.
Okay. I will start now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good evening, class.
Good evening, sir.
Well, our topic today is bank lending. Bank lending. And we're going to examine the principles of bank lending. Then we discuss the lending procedure. These principles of bank lending and the lending procedure. You know, most businesses depend on bank loans for operation, just like we learned in the previous meeting. There are many ways the bank can advance funds to customers. But before advancing funds, certain principles must be adhered to and certain procedures must be followed. Banks are there to make profit. They are not NGOs. They are profit making. So in order to make sure that both interests and principals are recovered, they must follow certain principles. So in the previous study sessions, you learned the functions of commercial banks and other classifications, such as merchant banks, development banks. One of the primary functions is lending to individuals, firms, and governments. The primary function is to lend to individuals, firms, and governments. Without lending, businesses find it difficult to survive. As well, banks may not survive because the principal source of profit is lending. So lending is a very important part of banking activity. If care is not taken, the loans will go bad and the banks will fold. So for lending activity to go on smoothly, it has to be based on certain time-tested principles as a guide. So the principles are the subject of this session, today's lecture. Hello? The first principle we're going to look at is that of liquidity. Liquidity. Ideally, banks lend only for short time because the depositors can come for their money anytime. Banks lend for liquidity. So lending should be made to investors whose outlets can be liquidated at short notice. Depositors are entitled to their funds every time they come in or every time they need of money. Therefore, banks lend money for a short time in most cases. Lending is for short. This is because the banks lend public money which can be withdrawn at any time by the depositors. Therefore, the principles of matching assets should not be neglected. You look at the investment or the need for the money on the part of the borrowers and see whether it matches your lending. So if you use short-term fund and lend long, when depositors come for their money, you may find it difficult to pay them back. So it's a very important principle that banks consider before lending. The next principle is spread. What they call diversification. They say you should not put all your eggs in one basket. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. You must diversify across sectors. Some sectors may do better, some may not. So if you pack all your money in one sector, you might find it difficult if that sector fails to perform very well. So the composition of the loan portfolio is very important. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. It's an old age adage. The loans being granted to customers are not normally concentrated in a particular type of sector, but in different sectors. Not only that, it helps to diversify and reduce the risk in the portfolio. We look at the third principle, which is safety. The funds must be safe in the sense that the borrower should be able to repay the loan and interest on time at agreed regular intervals without defaults. Lending without considering safety may lead to insolvency and consequent failure of the bank. So I have examined three now. The next principle is stability. Commercial banks only advance loans to customers whose businesses generate stable incomes. Stability. This guarantees the return of interest and principal. For instance, a customer who applies for a loan facility should have his project or business evaluated. He should have his business evaluated to determine the probability of such a venture generating constant income with which to service the loan and make repayment on a regular basis. as we go further, we will look at the tools that business, that the banks use to evaluate businesses. The next principle is profitability. Loans and advances are not just granted to customers for the fun of it. They are usually granted with the view to earning some income for the banks. This income can only be earned by the bank through the interest charges. It can only be made through the interest charges. Any bank that advances loans that are not profitable stands the risk of failure because they're not able to cover their charges in order to maintain the operations, e.g., payment of staff and other facilities. Let's go through again. We look at the principle of liquidity, the principle of safety, the principle of diversification or spread, stability, and profitability. These are the major principles that guide lending, bank lending. It can be spread to other operations, even money lenders. No one wants to lend to any project that is not profitable, to any business whose stability is questionable. No one wants to put his or her basket or her eggs in one basket. You lend for safety, interest, and principal. And then, to any project where there's strong assurance of keeping interest and principal at short notice. That is liquidity. We move a step further to look at the content of loan policy. Banks normally have loan policy, and this policy guides lending. This policy spells out the type of loans to be given, the type of customers to be serviced, the maximum amount that could be lent, the areas the banks prefer, the maximum time allowable, and so on and so forth. Let's start circuit again. The policy spells out the type of loans to be given or granted, the type of customers to be serviced, the maximum amount per customer, the maximum amount per sector, etc. To that extent, we have what is called loan limit. Banks set the maximum of loan that can be given or approved by an officer. Bank sets the maximum amount of loan that could be approved by an officer. Also, the maximum that could be lent to a particular customer. And this is a function of the position of the officer in the organization. We have credit officers that are of various levels. They have varying experiences, the expertise in the sector, and the understanding of customers' product or market. So the loan limit pertains to the position of the officer in the organization, his experience, his expertise in sector, and understanding the customer's business. So loan limit for customers is determined by the credit worthiness of the customer, his performance on the previous loans, operational capacity, customer's character, and other personal qualities. So the loan limit we are talking about applies to both the bank officer and the customer. Any officer whose loan limit is below what the customer needs, after doing his or her preliminary assessment, we move the request upwards to a higher officer. And it goes on and on like that. Everything will boil down to looking at the customer's credit worthiness, performance on previous loans, operational capacity, customer's character, and other qualities. So, loan limit is contained in the loan policy. You may advance, you may make a good loan, later on it will turn bad. Mostly in a situation where supervision is not followed. So, one other thing that should be incorporated in a loan policy is loan supervision. It is very important for the bank to set policies on loan supervision. The policies on granting of loans, their supervision and recovery. It may not be left to the loan officer. Committees are set up to handle this. Most of you may be bankers, understand better what I want to explain. The next point there is credit risk management. Each loan goes with a measure of risk, and the risk must be managed in order to guarantee a return of interest and principal as and when due. A policy should usually be established for the management of the credit or credit risk in terms of the problems that can be or that will emanate whenever recovery is about to take place. This concerns policies on loan recovery, especially when it demonstrates the tendency to go bad. How do you manage it? When is it going bad? When there's a delay, at least, in servicing the loan. When interest is not forthcoming. The credit officer should look closely to find out what is happening. So, there's a policy on credit risk management. How do we recover? How do we recover? Especially when a good customer is concerned. Let's take an example. You will make a good loan. The customer is a very nice one. Somewhere along the line, there's increase in inflation. Inflationary rates rises. And the customer start finding things difficult in such a way that there's delay in servicing the loan. Since he's a good customer, he has performed well over the period. What are you going to do? Because there's a risk that interest and principal may not be recovered. What do? Do we immediately call for the repayment and lose the customer when when he recovers? What is the policy on it? How do I approach him? Do you advance more money? Do you give him more money so that he'll be able to take off or recover? Or do you say, no, we're not going to give him more, let's get the ones we have given to him? You may run the risk of losing interest and principal if you do not advance more. How do you know the amount to advance? What do you do as a banker? These are issues that are treated under credit risk management. The next one is controlling customers' accounts. The bank should keep an eye on how the beneficiary operates his account. Policy on controlling the account of the customer who is a loan beneficiary is also necessary for consideration in establishing bank policies. The control of accounts or customer accounts is necessary because of the fact that a customer can engage in card flying, which may affect the repayment of loan and interest. What do we mean by that? A customer may advance, the customer will come and start a drawdown. He will pick money from another account and send to that one, the loan account. Before you know it, he picks from there and sends to another one. You will feel that the proceed is coming from the business, but he's doing something completely different. If you don't look closely, then there's going to be a problem. That is why supervision is very necessary. So supervising how the customer operates his account is very important. And it is always incorporated in the loan policy. Next one is monitoring and review of customers' case. This is done to evaluate the performance of a customer's account. It is necessary in the management of the bank's liquidity, particularly in the case of a big-time customer. Banks usually have monitoring committees for their loans. The important thing to note in this section is that banks maintain loan policies. You know what the loan policy is? I know what the content should be. How do we manage this loan? What measures can the banks take to make sure that interest and principal are recovered? That should be the content of the loan policy. We then move a little bit further to lending procedures. Lending procedures. Lending procedures. Lending starts with a request from the customer for facility. lending starts with a request from the customer for facility. The bank receives the application and put in place the process of appraisal in order to make sure that a good loan is made. That should be a loan request from a customer. Then the process of appraisal will be put in place, especially in a situation where the customer has to be invited for interview at least. Let's look at the loan request. In the process of lending, it is normal practice that a request be put forward by an applicant who is a customer of the bank. Is it possible for a non-bank customer to request for and obtain loans from a bank? This is a question for you. It's a research for you. It's a research for you. Find out if banks can lend to a non-customer. Then, the second step is that the loan applicant will be invited by the credit officer for interview. The loan applicant should be invited for interview. This enables personal interaction between the loan officer and the applicant for the loan facility. And this helps to confirm the necessary claims by the customer. The interview is normally conducted on the strength of the loan or loan form filled and the analysis of the same by the loan officer. When we put up a loan request, normally you'll be given a form, a set of forms to fill. This interview provides an opportunity for the bank loan officer to assess the following. 1, the customer's character and sincerity of purpose. So most forms may not be able to reveal this. It is very, very important that points are scored in order to ascertain the customer's character and sincerity of purpose. It also reveals how the customer is going to utilize the fund, his planned utilization of the fund. Is the actual amount of the fund sufficient for the project involved? A good credit officer, an experienced credit officer will be able to find out, looking at the request and what the money is going to be used for. You may find out in the process of interview that the customer simply needs small amount of money that you use to complete a project somewhere. In other words, the loan request is not mainly for the purpose of whatever is requesting for, whatever is written down. That's trick somewhere. So when the interview is being conducted, the credit officer will be able to be assured that the amount is enough, sufficient for the project involved. If not sufficient, the customer may receive a little advice. Then, in the process of interview, The officer will be able to discover the nature of applicant's business operation and his acumen in that area. He will also find out the means of repayment of the loan and the applicant's understanding of the implication of loan obligations. So he may not understand. And this is a situation where the business is done, not Nigerian style, man oh man, private business, or whichever way they do it. And of course, it is reflecting seriously on our performance and the performance of the Nigerian banking system or banking businesses. So there has to be interview. It's very, very important. The loan interview can be used to extract some additional information from the loan applicant, which can help the bank to form opinion on the loan. One may ask you, what is the purpose of loan interview? What is the purpose? What purpose does it serve? Or purposes as the case may be. It's for you now to know those things that could be derived from the interview. You go to the third step. The third step is a site visit. Most often, credit officers do not worry. They do not mind. Maybe they know the person, the loan applicant. Maybe it's somebody that has been in business with them for long. But it's still very, very important that you pay a site visit. Pay a site visit. The visit of a team of bank officers to the customer's business is very important because the applicant for the loan facility may not supply the necessary information upon which the decision will be taken. It is when a visit is paid to the site that you get to get additional information. The visit to the customer is inevitable for the following reasons. The visit is inevitable for the following reasons. It is business loan or mortgage loan that's applied for. It will help to verify, one, the claims of the customer. Apart from the one you get through an interview, the one you're seeing now, face to face, one on one, it helps to verify the claims of the customer. Two, to assess the nature of customer's business. In other words, you can use it to confirm what you got during the interview, to determine the actual scale of the customer's business. You may overshoot, you may exaggerate in order to get money. But when the bank officials are there on site, they will be able to make sure that what the customer is claiming is actually what is obtainable. It also helps the officers to locate whether the loan applicant has landed property to be used as security. In filling the form, you may lie, you may say certain property that doesn't own. But on the site visit, we help the officers in the location of the landed property, whether actually it's there or not, and the suitability as security. The visit will also expose the organizational setup or structure of the customer's business. You may claim it's a big business, maybe partnership when it's one man. It will help the bank or the officials to discover the setup, and this will help them when settling liabilities. And all these pieces of information will help the loan officers to make informed decision. We can move to the next step is the evaluation of the loan request. The pieces of information gathered in step 1 and 2 will further aid the officers to make evaluation of the loan request. Examining the financial statement is one of them. The documentations also, and the financial statements and documentation needed for loan evaluation includes 1, income statement of the business for some years. Look at the documentations, the income statement of the business for some years. If it's an ongoing business, you look at the balance sheet or pro forma balance sheet or pro forma income statement. Then look at the board of directors. Look at the resolutions authorizing the loan to be obtained from the bank. New businesses somehow use financial projections on income statements, on income generation. They use projections. The banks also can obtain information through credit analysis. Credit analysis is used to determine whether the business will be able to generate sufficient amount of cash or cash inflows for regular repayment of loan. These assets of the business will also be assessed for the purpose of business capacity to generate needed funds with which to repay the loan. You can also do reference checks. The loan officer will have to evaluate the references made and receipts from the loan applicant, in addition to information from contacts with other creditors who have previously extended credit to this customer. There needs to cross-check the guarantor's background to ensure that such people are credible. All this will come under analysis. Then you try to perfect the collateral given before you now prepare the loan guarantee or the loan agreement rather. If the loan officer is satisfied after the evaluation, the necessary loan agreement form and other documents that make up the agreement are prepared and signed by the loan officer and the customer beneficiary. There is also the need for the guarantors to sign the documents before final seal. And of course, the documents are housed by the bank. After signing, the bank carries the papers for safekeeping. what we have done in this session is to look at the procedure there has to be an applicant with application for loan. There has to be interview and what you're going to get out from the interview. You have to visit the site, find out things for yourself before you go into evaluation. After evaluation and you're satisfied, then you prepare the papers, sign the agreement, then you start to draw down. Then there are many things that are involved in appraisal. There are many things to be done in the appraisal. While you are doing the appraisal, a lending officer should be certain of the following. 1, the purpose of the loan. This helps the bank to know what the funds are meant for. Loans should not be used for illegal businesses or unproductive investments. Look for the purpose of the loan, the amount of the loan, the amount of funds will be assessed by the credit officer or loan officer in relation to 1, availability of funds for lending. See, we're going back. Availability of funds for lending, the liquid position of the bank, the regulation of the Apex Bank, amount of loan already committed in the industry and the spread, the pace of loan recovery, trend in volume of withdrawals, the pattern of deposits, quality of deposit accounts, and whether the amount applied for will be enough for the purpose it is applied for. Lending appraisals. Look at the purpose, look at the amount. The amount covers the available funds for lending. Do we actually, as a bank, have this amount for lending? The liquidity position in the bank at that particular time. The regulation guiding lending, that is from the Apex organization, Apex Bank. What are the amount of loan already committed in the sector? The officer must consider that. The pace of loan recovery, trend in the volume of withdrawals. Are customers coming to withdraw heavily? Look at the economic condition. Are customers coming to withdraw? Look at the pattern of deposits. Are they depositing? How much? Look at deposits and withdrawals, compare them. In other words, we're talking about the rate of inflow and outflow of deposits. Then quality of depositors' accounts in terms of savings, current, fixed deposit as the case may be, or even the customer knowing the exact amount to apply for. whether the amount applied for will be enough for the project. The bank will also be interested in determining the main reason which informs the customer request for the loan. The reason for the loan will enable the bank to classify the request in relation to broad-based categorization. Whether it's a real estate loan, short-term loan for construction and land development, long-term loan for the purchase of farmland, homes, apartments. It will help the banks to categorize. Also look at source of repayment. This is related to the cash flow of the business. Bank prepare businesses that can generate enough cash or enough cash flow to service the principal and interest charges. You don't go to another business and get money to repay a loan. The interest and repayment has to come from the project. Otherwise, it's not a good one. The banks also look at the ability of the beneficiary to repay. This issue will be assessed in relation to the capital and assets of the business for which the loan is being granted. And this is based on the fact that the capital base of the business determines its ability to carry out its operation efficiently. The officer has to evaluate the risk inherent in the loan. Lending is a risky business. The loan request will also be assessed in relation to the risk inherent in it or the facility. The risks that are going to be faced are the following: default in repayment, delays in repayment, diversion of funds, failure of the projects, mismanagement of the funds, and total loss. The officer must be abreast and has to find out and has to probe in order to find out the probability of default in repayment, delays in repayment, diversion of the funds, failure of the project, mismanagement of the funds, and total loss. Before you get to total loss, you must have done something via supervision. Why is it important for the loan officer to try to find out the risks inherent in the loan? For one thing, it helps in loan pricing. If it, for instance, it's a risky lending, the loan officer will demand for higher interest. If it's a low default risk, you must accept a moderate or lower interest. So risk assessment is very important. It helps in loan pricing. Now, we mentioned credit analysis. There are some financial ratios that are used for credit analysis. There are some financial ratios. I'll merely mention them. One is the current ratio. Current ratio is an ideal ratio. It's a good ratio. The current ratio refers to relating the total value of the current assets to total current liabilities. Current assets to current liabilities. The current ratio, current asset over current liabilities. The quotient obtainable from the calculation is indicative of the ability of the business to meet its current financial obligation. How many times will your current asset cover your current liabilities? How many times does your current asset cover your current liabilities? The ID ratio from the calculation is 2:1, but it also depends on the type of business. Many thriving companies continue to operate successfully despite having negative ratios. Economic conditions also affect it. Current asset over current liabilities. Your current asset covers your current liabilities twice. It's a good ratio. The next one is the acid test ratio, or what we call quick ratio. Acid test, quick ratio. Current assets minus inventories over current liabilities. Inventories are not very marketable. Inventories are not very marketable. You may have inventories of raw materials and spares. When you want to recover them, it will be very difficult to sell. So when you remove inventories from current assets and divide it by the current liabilities, whatever it gives you is superior to current ratio. The ID ratio is 1:1, 1:1. It's of fundamental importance when assessing the ability of the firm to survive. The next one is debtors collection period. How long does it take you to collect your debt? The ratio relates to the value of sales to debtors, or what we call account receivable of the business. The ratio measures the efficiency of business in collecting debt obligations or controlling debts. Is it very long? Is it very short? The average length of time the money is owed by a debtor. If debtors pay promptly, it's good. If they don't pay promptly, then there's a problem. So the officer has to look at it. The next ratio is inventory turnover. How long does it take you? How long does it take you? The ratio measures the relationship between the cost of sales and the inventory in the current assets. This measures the speed at which a company sells its stocks. Is the market moving, as they used to say? Or do you buy and stock? How long does it stay with you? Is it a moving business? Is it a fast business? Is it a business that you buy and stock and wait for years without sale? Inventory turnover. The rate is bound to affect the profitability of the business and is measured by average stocking period over cost of goods sold times 360 days. The ratio is very irrelevant because it assesses the ability of the business to generate cash inflows with which it can meet current commitments. You have interest coverage ratio. When you borrow for business, you must pay the interest. How do you cover the interest? These measures or relates the earnings before interest and taxes to total interest payment on fixed debts. You have leverage ratios, have fixed asset turnover, as the case may be. So these are ratios that a bank may use or bank officer may use for credit analysis. Then we have to go to the next one, which is considerations for decisions on loan requests. The use of data in the income statement and the balance sheet is not considered enough to assess the creditworthiness of a customer. There are other higher things that are usually looked into, like the character of the person, the ability, the margin, the purpose of the loan, the amount, the repayment, insurance, and the rest of the things. A business with insurance is better than one without insurance. Business with insurance is better than the one without insurance. So these are additional things that the loan officer has to check. He also has to look at the collateral. Banks insist on collateral for several reasons. Collateral is a property that is pledged by a loan beneficiary towards securing a facility. There are basic reasons that compel banks to insist on collateral being pledged by a beneficiary. There are several reasons for that. One, it grants power of foreclosure. It gives the power of foreclosure. When a customer, for one reason or the other, is unable to repay, then the collateral serves as a remedy if it's enough. The pledge of collateral security gives the bank the right to seize and sell the assets designated as loan collateral in order to offset the loan. You have to sanction collateral. Two, it makes the borrower to be committed in business. Whenever I pledge something of substance, it makes the borrower to be committed in business. This is due to the fact that when specific assets are at stake, the borrower will feel more obligated to strive very hard to repay the loan, and thus avoid losing the valuable operational assets. It also helps in identification of the pledged assets. It helps banks to identify the assets for foreclosure. It guarantees safety. So this is just the purpose of collateral. And some properties are used, or some assets are used as collateral for loan. They are used as collateral for loan. Many assets are used as collateral for loan. Some could be movable property, some are fixed, like land. Some are financial securities, and so on and so forth. Some are financial securities. So, one small assignment you have to do is to look at the collaterals that banks accept against the loan they grant. Look at the collaterals. I'm not asking you to go deeper to start reading how to perfect them. What is required at this stage is for you to know the collaterals that are acceptable. In case you get any bank, you get a facility, and they ask you, Then the ones you know and the ones you don't know. The ones you have and the ones you don't have. You'll be able to understand what is being discussed. So today, what have we done? I want a summary on the bank lending. On the bank lending. Look at the principles involved. Look at the procedures. What and what are required. What is the job of the credit officer? How many stages are involved? Up to the time of signing the agreement. The agreement contains the drawdown conditions, the repayment conditions, every other thing that will facilitate the repayment of the loan, interest and principal, as the loan agreement. And that is where we have to stop for today. Next time, we'll start with question and answer from Module 1, Study Session 1. So I urge you to please pick your reading material, start afresh. When we run through, I'll be sending you quizzes, which of course will enhance your understanding, because the university will give you a quiz at the appropriate time, the one they're going to record. But the ones I'll be giving you will help you to facilitate learning. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Good night, sir.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey.